Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I'm on ChessCube right now, and I'm going to observe one of the top-rated games, and then just follow the winner for one more game. So let's just dive right in, see a 5-minute game. We have a 2100 as for white versus another 2100. So what do we have going on? Pass pawn on the d file, but that seems like it could be easily blockaded with the king, and then it would free up the rook on d8 to do something. I think black is the side to be preferred here. This is a nice blockade. It frees up the black rook to do something, and this 2-to-1 majority is very quick to create a passed pawn. So you could see at some point a4, b4. In fact, in this position, taking into account these pieces, the knights and rooks, if both of those sets of pieces were swapped off in the resulting endgame, the king and pawn endgame, black is going to be winning. So unfortunately this knight has to just stay here to watch over d5, and I guess this would be one of those improving type of moves, just a slow improvement. A4, b4, maybe just a3 is a possibility. So we have the rook exchange going on, and I think actually just after king d6 this is going to spell trouble. What to do about this pawn? Knight c5, it's hit again. This looks like it's just going to turn out to be a win for black. So hopefully these guys play one other game. Why was this move played? Did black think that they were going to be able to pick off this pawn? Seemed like just knight c5 would have been better, attacking b3, but alright. So this is going to be a little bit trickier. Unfortunately in this sort of ending, whenever it's a knight ending, there's going to be well, both sides are likely going to be having to do a lot of calculating, so you have to be very precise. And with the time issue that we have right now, both sides with roughly 30 seconds, we're going to have another close finish most likely, and a lot of just crazy knight checks and just pre-moves pretty much. So these are important pawns to hang on to, b4 and a3. So who's going to be able to create a passed pawn first? That's really what both sides should be looking to do. So white's the side who has the advantage now all of a sudden. So the tables have turned. The king is very nicely placed here, and the knight unfortunately having to be on the rim. Not a good position to be in. So actually maybe just knight d4, munch time. These two pawns are going to fall. And actually black is just going to end up losing on time. So hopefully these guys play one other game. Let's see what we have. There we go, one other game. And they have a little bit of an audience here, about eight members watching this game. So potential Benoni, or potential Benko Gambit I should say. This is a little bit awkward. So queen c2 to guard c4 and also support e4, I guess. This is a different move. Typically, you know, if you want to just go for the gambit, try your best to hang on to a pawn, you just capture on b5 there. But okay, so we have the queen side just locking up, and now white is able to build this really nice pawn center. And with this f4 advance, e5 is now always going to be a very dangerous threat. And moves like knight f3, just natural moves, are going to be supporting e5. Black isn't going to have as nice a coordination with this bishop bearing down on b2. Typically, you know, with this Benko Gambit, the rook on b8 would then add additional pressure to b2, but we don't have that going on. a3 was to prevent the bishop from coming out to g4 to dislodge this knight from f3. Many times in a Benoni type of structure, this bishop on c8 really doesn't have a good role to play in the game, and so many times you'll see this bishop giving itself up for the knight on f3. So that's another reason why we had white playing this h3 advance. So e6 to crack at the furthest advanced white pawn, and just some simple development. If takes, I believe you just recapture with c, because white is lagging in development, still has to castle, so I believe just c takes at this point. And now you just have to castle actually, because knight takes d was threatened. What do we do as black? How do we complete our development if you're playing the black side here? how to really put additional pressure on the white side. Okay, so a4 is now permitting bishop to a6, exchanging off this light square piece. I guess a natural move like knight c3 is called for here. What is okay? Bishop d2 tells me that the bishop is looking to reroute itself on c3 and potentially exchange off these dark square bishops. So this knight, ooh, that was a little bit weird. Okay, no. If the knight were to capture, then the bishop, that's another reason. The bishop from d2 is putting pressure on a5. Okay, because I was thinking initially the knight could just go to a6 and then b4 and be very annoying. Okay, so the queen's hitting the rook. And this is a little bit awkward to see this knight still in its home square, so I wouldn't be surprised if we're seeing knight c3 very soon. But now, the pawn is hit. Oh, that was just a terrible blunder. Was it not? This, trouble for black. We might actually see a quick resignation here. So I believe just bishop takes rook. Is there any compensation whatsoever? After just bishop takes rook, what else is there? Ooh, why don't we have that going on? What was the big fear that white had in that position? To just take the rook. Okay, granted, you take the rook, the knight recaptures and is hitting the queen, but after just queen c2, isn't white just perfectly fine? I mean, there are dark square weaknesses, but I don't think white did well not to go for that sort of exchange. So let's see what we have going on. I guess just exchange bishops, maybe, and well, then b2 is going to come under heavy fire. This bishop on c3 is the best defender for the pawn on b2, so as soon as this guy is eliminated on c3, these heavy pieces are going to be able to crash through on that b2 point, and then who knows, maybe at some point then we're going to have on the white end 7th rank vulnerabilities. So e5 actually does a couple things. The knight was threatening on f4, so now the queen is able to guard f4 laterally, and we have this nice pawn push. So this knight is kind of looking a bit silly if it can't really get back involved in the game. I guess by way of g3 and f4, that's a possibility. So black is once again welcoming some sort of a exchange sacrifice. So now since white has given up the dark square bishop, you do have to be a bit careful of your dark squares. The white side has to be a bit careful of the dark squares, and this queen is putting pressure on a lot of the white pieces at this point. Rook, knight, e5 pawn, and I think we might be seeing soon pawn takes pawn, and then black actually winning some pawn right here, but not so fast. This is the only safe square, I believe. Queen a2. Fortunately, there's no rook move where there would give check, so you definitely don't want to do. You don't want to move like your rook off of this back rank as black. That's for sure, because of tactics. Rook b8, unprotected pieces leads to tactics, so you have to be a bit careful. So the rook's hitting the queen. Where does she retreat to? I guess a5. a5 to at least have some possibilities for coming here at some point, or at least threatening to come into the white position, or maybe just actually a1, or would that run into a trap? Queen to a1 would be met with rook a3, and isn't it going to be trapped or not? Queen takes knight. What am I thinking? So the knight is pinned. Not a great position to be in. Maybe just king h2, a dual purpose move actually. King h2 would get out of the pin and watch over g3, so that would take an additional square away from the knight, but e5 is something to be watching over at this point. So the queen from a1 is putting additional pressure on this pawn. Both sides under 2 minutes at this point, and we have actually some more people joining along. 14 spectators total right now. So what is this knight move doing? It's guarding the knight. I guess in doing so, you're freeing up this rook on b3 to do some other things. I'm not quite sure. It seems a little bit awkward to retreat the knight like this. Maybe another reason is to allow the rook to watch over g3. That might be another reason why we saw that knight retreat. Or actually, well, okay, rook a3. I believe white might have been thinking that the queen was going to be trapped after rook to a3, but when the knight went to d2, it was no longer watching over d4, so that's why the queen was able to make use of that square. So this is an unprotected piece on e2. Are there knight checks? If the knight were to check, the king could always just bump up and then be guarding the rook, so that's not really a threat. Both sides have passed pawns. The king is moving to a dark square. Maybe one day if the bishop can get on this dark diagonal, it could be trouble for white. This is I really don't know how this is going to turn out. Actually, material-wise, it's completely even at this point. So what are we going to have here as a finish? The offering of exchange of knights, and now pressure against f4. I think you could just do f5. This pawn is really going to be tough to get rid of. The bishop is conveniently placed on g7. Right now it's giving check. The knight could always play to c3, and if it's ever taken, the pawn just recaptures. It's still protected by the bishop, and it's just simply one step closer to queening. It would only be 2 steps away. So what do we have here? I guess slight king improvements can be called for at this point. King f7, king e6. White is getting ready to pile up on this pawn, actually. So moves like knight f3, hitting both bishop and pawn. If this pawn falls, there could be some trouble. Right now, rook on the back rank could give white some problems. So there's a little bit of a king safety issue on the white end. How to meet that threat? This is a very strong move. It's guarding this f1 square. So now a rook check can't be met by a block by way of a rook or knight to f1. Both sides with about 45 seconds each. I really have no idea how this is going to finish. Maybe... Ooh, okay, so the knight is going to be the one responsible for blocking. Is there a way to exploit that? So rook check, knight block. How can we attack this pin piece? Is there a way we can do that? I really don't see a way. It seems like white is in a giant knot. This king could just slip in, actually, by way of e6, d5, e4, slightly improve the position. How do you really stop this, actually? King e6, king d5, king e4. The king is just slipping in. How do you get rid of this pin? This king is going to be tucked in very, very nicely on e5, getting rid of this blockader. The rook isn't the greatest blockader of a passed pawn, but let's see what we have. Both sides under 25 seconds. So this is how we're challenging this pinned knight on g1, and it's looking like black is going to be... What do we have here? If this pawn could have gotten to this square, knight check. Okay. I think at this point we could forget about position. It's once again going to come down to a time war. So who's going to have the quicker mouse? Well, actually at this point it doesn't matter. It looks like it's just going to be black winning, both in material and a slight edge on time. But I've seen crazier things happen, so here we go. Who's going to win? And it looks like black. Or no, white. Wow. One move away from just winning. I'm just going to stop there. Another crazy finish. I'm not going to observe any more game. But once again, that's all for this video. As always, I hope you got something out of it. Take care. Bye.